Morning, everyone. I'll start now. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome to our first Land Use Coordinating Committee meeting of 2022. I hope you all had a good end to the year and have had a good start to 2022. I'm sure you're all sticking to those New Year resolutions about hitting the gym, eating healthier, being less on your phones, and working less. I'm sure that's going really well. I know it is for me. Well done. Now, I thought maybe we start the morning with a quick poll just to that end. And so, Molly, I don't know if this is enough notice for you, but if you wanted to pull up a quick poll, which is, how many of you created a New Year's resolution this year? And so, I think, Molly, are you the only one who can see the answers?
I might be. Once I end it, I can broadcast those responses. So once the responses slow down.
And I know the answer to this one is probably easy because it's easy to make the resolution. The second question is going to be tougher.
All right, so I'm going to end. Share results. It actually looks like 30% made a resolution, 44 didn't, and 26 never make a resolution.
Never. A lot of realistic people here, which I love. And then I guess the second question out of the 30% who did make resolutions was, how many of you are still, how long have you kept it? Are you still keeping that resolution? Still going strong? You got a week, couple of weeks, broke it the next day, or didn't make one, which seems there's a bunch of them that did not make it. So
still getting responses.
Thought we were planners here.
Exactly.
Planners as professionals, not in our personal lives.
All right, looks like 29 still going strong. 2 a week and a couple of weeks. 4 broke it the next day, and 64 didn't make one, so can't break it.
Hold on.
Here we go. So we're cheering the 29% off the 26% that are still going strong on their newer resolutions. And for the rest of us, I guess it's always 2023, so we can try again next year. And so, well, my own year was off to not an ideal start with a 7-day all-inclusive vacation in my guest bedroom, thanks to Omicron. So I'm sure you have had a Teams or Zoom call, or know of someone, talk to someone, or have yourself unfortunately contracted this variant of COVID. Given how transmissible this variant is, we decided to push back our office official reopening to the near future, to a date that's TBD, that's still being formulated. Now, all indications are pointing to a late February full reopening of the ARC offices, but like anything else, fingers crossed once again. So we'll keep you all posted. We're hoping that although we were hoping in December when we had the last meeting that we were going to do this meeting in person, but we're really hoping that as we get towards, at least we can meet in person in Q1, if not next month, with all of you at the ARC offices. Despite this disruption though, I will say we're very excited about all the things that we have in the pipeline for 2022. And again, hoping as every year to actively engage with all of you and have you participate in various aspects of ARC's work. Now, I'm not going to go through the list, but I did want to spend a couple of minutes just giving you a little bit of a preview of some of the key initiatives. Now, some of you've heard from Carrie Stevens, who runs the economic development functions within ARC, that we are kicking off our comprehensive economic development strategy, formerly known as Catalyst. And that is something we're starting officially next month. And again, as part of that, we need your help in crafting what we believe are economic challenges and solutions that will enable our region to continue to stay competitive as a place as at the national level. Now, not sure how many of you listen to the Freakonomics podcast. I think I shared it with some staff here, but they did this excellent piece on why everyone is moving to Dallas. And if you don't know of someone moving to Dallas, believe me, you will hear about it soon enough. But it had a lot to do, and this is an economics podcast, so they break it down in terms of the economics of it. And they talk a lot about how their investments in small businesses, arts and culture, housing, and believe it or not, sidewalks is a big part. Well, also it helps to have a big airport, which we do as well. But again, that was some. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, I'd highly recommend it. But it is one of those things that's going to be front and center for us as we think about this version of our economic development strategy for the region. Is that's going to be a very different way to think about economic competitiveness, especially when we're planning for the next generation of workforce. We are also continuing our work, which we started late last year, with 5 of our core county commission chairs and 8 mayors from across the metro. The work being chaired by Chairwoman Hendrickson from Gwinnett County, with the intention of working with the elected leaders to help educate and inform them on various aspects of housing that they're able to influence as leaders, issues that they're facing as elected leaders specifically, and then finding tools to help them overcome some of those challenges that they're facing now. And at the end of this is an 8-month process, so we're going to come back to you at various points and share some of those findings and some of the conversations that we're having with the elected leaders at a high level. But the goal is for having the elected leaders through this process sign on to specific commitments that they're going to take on as leaders in their jurisdictions to tackle affordable housing or housing affordability. And so again, a fascinating process already, but again, we got 8 months ahead of us, and we're looking forward to again, sharing some of that with you, but also working with our elected leaders on this, again, key critical regional issue. Lastly, again, this year, we talked about this at land use coordinating committees throughout the year last in 2021, but we're going to continue our commitment to doing better in terms of engaging underrepresented individuals and organizations. And to that end, if you have not already seen, we issued an RFP last week seeking proposals from community-based organizations led by and serving underrepresented groups in underrepresented areas of our region, with the goal being that these individuals and organizations would guide and assist our work in developing more inclusive community engagement practices that are centered on, like I said, again, these underrepresented and underserved groups. We will throw a link to that RFP in the chat. Molly or Jared or whoever has access to that, we can throw a link to that. Please share that with organizations that would be interested. But like I said, just one example of how we as the ARC's Community Development Group, but as an organization, are going to continue our work on doing more inclusive community engagement. In fact, today, as part of the LCI and CDAP application process, you're going to hear from Molly and Jared a little bit about how, again, we're asking you to be engaging community groups in the development of your project idea, but also asking how you're going to be involving them in the planning process as well. We haven't forgotten about the infrastructure law, which went into place. I don't think it's almost impossible to not think about it on a daily basis for us as the MPO. As you can imagine, this historically large in terms of dollar amount and wide-reaching in terms of scope law is complicated, and the rules are still being finalized. We are continuing to monitor and process it as the information comes in. But again, we will be bringing the information to this group on an ongoing basis. And frankly, I'm very excited at the possibility of this law helping us address critical regional issues like transit and housing in very real and meaningful ways. So stay tuned on that. Now, being mindful of time, there's a lot more that I will share with you later on. in future LUCCs. But on to today. We want to spend today telling you about two key programs that most of you are familiar to a certain degree about: the Livable Centers Initiative and the Community Development Assistance Program. We're also very thankful and excited to hear from our friends at Gateway Marietta CID, the City of Decatur, and Gwinnett Place CID on their experiences working with these two programs and some of the outcomes that they received. So we are going to get right to it. I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Molly to walk you through some of the logistics of the meeting today, do some polling, and then get into the heart of the discussion today. So again, thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing your project ideas. Molly?
Thanks, Sam. We're actually going to jump to some announcements, and we've got some community development staff here to jump in and give those. I'm going to start with the first announcement here, the Land Use Coordinating Committee. Beginning February 2022, that's next month, the LUCC will begin meeting bi-monthly on the third Wednesday. So what that means for February is we will be meeting February 16th from 9 to 10:30. The reason for this is we're hoping to start meeting in person. That might not happen in February, but we're hoping it will in March and forward, as well as to bring you even more engaging content. So just wanted to let you all know that we will be shifting that meeting date, same time, but going to bi-monthly on the third Wednesday of the month. I don't know if Marion is here and wants to speak to the RFP that Sam already mentioned. We did put that link in the chat as well. And if not, I know Sade is here to talk about RLI.
There we go, off of mute. Thank you, Molly. Good morning, everyone. I am Bola Sade Alao, and I am the program manager for the Regional Leadership Institute. I don't know if my video is on or off. I wanted to, well, first of all, I can't actually see you all, but a number of you, names I recognize, are RLI alums. And so it's so wonderful for you all to be on the call, and hopefully for folks who have other questions, you can certainly reach out to me or reach out to some of the alums in the room. What is RLI? RLI is a 1-week intensive leadership program. But I really want to highlight some of the adjectives. It is about building networks across the region of leaders who are interested and committed to regional change and creating collective impact in the areas, many of the areas that Sam mentioned that are critical regional issues, from housing affordability to workforce development. What's exciting about RLI is that leaders are able, oh, hello? Okay, so I just want to mention it's an exciting program that allows folks not only to look closely in their community, but also across the region, and to kind of build those linkages. So I hope that you all will share that the applications are open for folks in your organization, in your community, but also outside of your community. It's open to folks in the 11-county metropolitan area. So I know these are short announcements. I'm going to stop right there, but the information is in the announcements, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you'd like to learn more.
Thank you, Sade. And then I think
there was a question. It is, it's going to be September 18th through September 23rd this year.
Great. Thank you, Sade. And then I think Jared might jump on to talk about DCA's local planning success stories.
Yes, and many communities in Metro Atlanta have submitted local success stories to DCA, but DCA is starting their annual call for success stories. And if you're interested, this is how local governments are implementing their comprehensive plan. So they are really looking for projects that are in your short-term work program or community work program that you have taken from the planning process and actually implemented and built. If you are interested, the link to find out more is on the page, but you can also reach out to myself or Andrew Smith, and we can help you through the submission process. So thank you, and I will turn it back over to Molly.
Yeah, all right, next slide, Jared. I know we've all used Zoom quite a bit, but I always like to go over how to participate just briefly. As always, and as many of you have done already, you can add questions and comments to the chat function. We'll get to those as we can. And then at various points throughout today's presentation, we will give you the opportunity to raise your hand and wait to be called on to speak, to ask those questions or provide those comments. And I'm going to pass it back to Jared now.
Actually, Molly, don't we have a couple more polls?
We do, thank you. All right. First off, these are going to maybe look familiar if you were with us at the December Ideas Exchange. First off, have you previously applied for an LCI or CDAP? All right, we're going to share those. Looks like 63% say yes, 38% say no. All right. Next up, do you have a project idea? Options are yes, and I'm ready to apply. Yes, but I need a little help refining it. Yes, but I need assistance in developing the idea, or no. All right, we're going to share those results. 23% are ready to apply. 21% need a little help refining their idea. 21% need help developing their idea. And 34% do not currently have an idea. And lastly, as always, we like to know who's here with us. So which sector do you represent? Consultant, municipality, nonprofit, educational, or other?
What would you call a CID?
Other. All right, we're going to end that, share those results for you. We've got 13% consultants, 40% municipality, 16% nonprofit, no educational institutions with us here today, and 32% other. Wonderful. Thank you so much for responding to those. All right, now Jared's going to take it away.
All right, and thank you, everyone. I'm Jared Lombard. I manage the
Did Jared just freeze on? I think Jared, you froze for us.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm back.
You're back now.
Okay.
Let's take it from the top. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I forgot to restart my router this morning, and Comcast is Comcast. All right. So, and if not, Molly can take it over for me, or Sam, if I freeze again. So good morning, everyone. I'm Jared Lombard. I manage the LCI program here at ARC, and I'm happy to announce our 23rd call for planning studies through the LCI program. This has been around since 1999, and we have worked in over 128 different communities with a full visionary LCI study, and we've done 161 follow-ups LCI studies in those 128 communities. We've funded right now, and this will change in the next couple months, 122 LCI transportation projects. And we've also awarded $19.6 million in study funds and over $293 million in transportation funds. This program, you cannot go throughout Metro Atlanta and see the impact of this program in different communities. And a lot of you have already received a lot of those funds today. Now you can see we're all throughout the whole region. We're from Villa Rica to the west, all the way to Covington, to the east, all the way up in Ball Ground in the north. And our furthest south project is actually where 19 and 41 split in the southern part of Spalding County. So many different regional activity centers, town centers throughout the Metro Atlanta region have received study funds and transportation projects over the last 22 years. And I'm going to just allow Amy to make a brief announcement about some of the new programmatic aspects coming to the LCI transportation program. Of course, I must. All right.
Hi everyone. I'm Amy Goodwin. I'm Jared's counterpart in the transportation group at ARC. Were you going to pull up a slide or the website or not, Jared? It's okay if you don't have it, but
I think I have the website up. You should see it.
oh, okay.
The announcement. Yeah.
Maybe I can't. Well, anyway, most of you probably got an email from me and perhaps saw the press release. We did announce the sort of preliminary recommendations for funding of 17 LCI projects. These were, we had a call for projects that opened over the summer, closed at the end of August, went through our kind of rigorous evaluation process. And these projects are subject to the TIP amendment process to be approved. So while you may see it referred to as the draft list or recommended list. So it is open for public comment right now through February 11th. We have a public hearing on February 9th. That's in conjunction with TCC, I believe. And then it'll start the committee, our various committee and board approval process. So that'll take us, so the final approval gets in the TIP is going to be in March. So if you have any questions, it's all up on our website now, and my email address is up there as well. I'll make sure I pop it in the chat if it's the link. And I don't know. I guess that's about it. Unless you want me to, I know we're trying to be quick, unless you want me to go into detail about the 17 projects, but there is information all on our website. They're, throughout the region.
And Amy, this was the application that closed in
I want to say it was like August 29th or something like that. So it's been a minute.
Yeah. And so the one that closed in December, will make that announcement later this year, right?
Yeah, so that one we're really just in the midst of the evaluation. We hope to have that kind of initial recommended list, project list in early spring is what we're saying. So maybe April. And then that'll go through that committee and board, public comment committee and board process at that point.
Thank you, Amy.
Welcome.
All right. And, I scrolled through the list a little bit of those projects. A lot of those projects actually came out of an LCI tactical study, which I'll describe in a little bit. I can see Alyssa and Kaipo. Both of those were projects that were recently funded over the last studies that were funded in the last couple of years. And then they were able to get TIP funding pretty quickly through the process because they had a really well-developed scope and worked through a lot of those issues. Now, the LCI schedule, and this is very, very similar to the CDAP schedule that Molly will show in a little bit. So our applications opened in the middle of January. Today, we're at the open house period. Applications are due February 28th. And once that happens, we will start an internal review. We may call you or follow up if we have any specific questions about your application. We are shooting to make an announcement in either April or May. I'm shooting for April, but just be prepared. It could be delayed till May. And then June, we are hopefully going to be able to finalize all the contracting with you as if you are selected as a sponsor, and to work through that so we can get an RFP. You can get an RFP out to procure a consultant for this LCI work. Now, all work has to be completed by November 1st, 2023. And this means that you are no longer billing to ARC. So everything will have to be finalized within the last week of October, and that you have about 15 days to submit final invoices. I know a few people who are going through the process this year. There was a lot of transition about billing and information. It'll be something, if you are selected, we'll go over with in much more detail, but it's where there are there's a lot more emphasis on a lot of the documentation and making sure that your project is complete by the time the contract ends. For those that are unfamiliar with the LCI program, this is a reimbursable grant program. We will pay 80% of the study amount, and you're responsible for the 20%. For an LCI, this is one of the main differences between LCI and CDAP, you must be a CID, a local government, or a transit agency. ARC can award up to $1.8 million total in all projects. Like I said, work must be complete by November of 2023. And all the projects have to have a connection to transportation, to promoting alternatives to driving alone as well. This is also a very important note. If a consultant assists in your application development, they are now precluded from competing for that study as a consultant. So I know there's some consultants on the call, just be mindful of this. It's not like it's mostly on the honor system. However, we do find out, we may have to cancel that contract with the sponsor as well. So just be mindful of assistance and helping develop some of the concepts. But as I say that, but feel free to reach out to any ARC staff if you have questions about your study or you want to talk about your study idea going forward as well. Application tips. We do have the applications available as a Word document on our website. You are limited to 1,400 characters per question. That's part of the web software template. So you really don't need to go above that as well. Also, it's important to note that planners review your application. You don't need to go into the benefits of TOD generally about, just general benefits of like TOD or creative placemaking or affordable housing. We understand that as planners, but we're really looking to what's the need within your community and how LCI can help with that, help you address that need. We're also really looking at what do you want as a deliverable outside the study, with specifics. Are you looking for zoning code changes? Are you looking for a market analysis, design renderings? All of that information helps us review your application. Sam did mention we are looking also this year how you've done, talk to other members in your community about your potential study. If you haven't done that, that's okay. But we're also looking for, who would be involved in the study process as well. So LCI, like past years, we are focusing on two main types of areas: main streets and downtowns, and transit areas. And transit areas are both existing and future planned transit areas. We are not looking for neighborhood plans or subdivision plans, corridors that don't have a transit investment. There's other options at ARC to kind of fund those, but we're really looking at your traditional main streets and downtowns or future transit areas. Now, you've heard me probably use the term tactical or catalytic LCI studies. A tactical LCI study helps you implement your LCI plan. So this could be, your LCI plan recommended a trail or trail crossing, but you need more detail to determine if that project's feasible. A lot of times we'll get some high level concepts like, hey, we can do a crossing over this road, but we really don't know how much it costs, the environmental impacts, all of that type of information that you can be successful in the TIP application. You can apply to kind of look at that, the feasibility, what types of funding would be appropriate to actually implement that. Another example is, your LCI plan proposed doing a roundabout or another transportation investment, but you really need to do some more outreach and study to determine if it's both engineering feasible. I'm sure, but as also, is it publicly feasible? A lot of times it gets kind of lost in the description. So in the major studies. So we're looking at, is it really feasible from a political and public perception as well? It could be looking at developing zoning and design guidelines. And these are just some examples. Or you're also looking at to do a detailed development and transportation recommendations for a specific site or area. And all of these can really be included into what we call a catalytic LCI study. And that those catalytic LCI studies are your community's first LCI plan or an update to your existing LCI plan. Those really need to look at the connections between land use and transportation, but we also want you to develop recommendations for economic development and housing, making sure that the zoning aligns with the plan recommendations, and really look at what is a 500 or what we call a 100-day action plan. So these are quick fixes that you can show the community that you're implementing the LCI plan. A 5-year work program, which are some projects that are implementable within a short 5-year time frame, and then a longer term work program. These could be federal aid transportation projects that just need more time to actually implement and go through a process. When we first started the program, we were very optimistic that we can award funds and build transportation projects pretty quickly. We've realized over the last 10, 15 years, it takes about 4 to 7 years to actually get a project from an LCI study actually implemented and built. And I'm sure there's a few of you that on this call have gone through that process as well and know it can take a while. Now, last year, we introduced what we call pilot studies, and we're continuing that as well. The first one we did the Transit Creative Placemaking pilot, and we awarded 2 studies last year for Midtown Alliance and the Upper West Side CID to do transit creative placemaking aspects. These are not, what's on the screen is actually not what they're proposing yet. These are examples from Lexington and Hopkins, Minnesota, but they're right now kicking off their process. So we're continuing that program, and if you have transit areas, both regular bus stops or future BRT stops or MARTA stations, we're really looking for you and encouraging you to apply to how to do some creative placemaking at those areas. And we're actually working with Sugarloaf CID on doing that at the park and ride lot as well. But the one I'm really excited about this year is looking at community vehicle charging to do a pilot. There's a couple different options. One, how to prepare your LCI area, making sure you have all the infrastructure ready for community vehicle charging. But also we're looking at a lot of the catalytic studies or tactical studies, if they do have opportunities to introduce it, electric vehicle charging in the study area, to how to best incorporate it. That could be illustrating those on potential streetscapes, or it could be identifying public parking areas that could be converted. All of that, we're kind of leaving this as to listen to get your ideas and see what would best fit. So that's why we are calling it a pilot this year. And I think with that, I'm gonna just wrap up real quickly, but if you have any questions or want to talk about your ideas, this next month or so, feel free to reach out to myself or other ARC staff. I will say my calendar is getting pretty packed pretty quickly with talking to communities, which is good because we want really great applications to come in. But we're more than happy to discuss your application, to work through issues or your thoughts going forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Molly, and she's going to kick off the CDAP program.
Thanks, Jared. Hi, everyone. As Jared said, my name is Molly Bogle, and I manage the Community Development Assistance Program. Today, I want to give you a little bit of information about the program with a few more specifics about our application process, and then answer any questions that you might have. Next slide. As always, I like to start with what is CDAP? The Community Development Assistance Program provides planning assistance to local governments, CIDs, and nonprofits across our now 11-county metro region to undertake local planning activities that advance the goals of the region's plan. Our goals include implementing the region's plan at the local level, advancing social equity and promoting community resiliency, and fostering comprehensive, inclusive, and meaningful community engagement. Next slide. As part of ARC's ongoing efforts to create outcomes that benefit community members that have been disproportionately and negatively impacted by past planning outcomes, CDAP will prioritize planning assistance to applications that demonstrate an active partnership with a community-based organization, which we define as an organization with a mission to improve the environmental, economic, social, cultural, and/or quality of life conditions of a common community of interest. Now, the term organization should be broadly interpreted and can encompass groups with formal legal status, as well as unregistered groups, such as block clubs, or other groups that may not have a legal designation, yet are still organized to work on collective efforts to benefit their community. Next slide. CDAP operates within the 8 priority issue areas you see here. If you look closely, you might notice that 2 priority issue areas have changed slightly. Smart communities is now smart technology, and green infrastructure is now impacts of climate change. While the descriptions are the same, the names now more accurately reflect the types of projects we're seeking. Speaking of, we are looking for CDAP projects that address just 1 or 2 of these priority issue areas. And while projects do not need to address all priority issue areas, applications should explain in detail how and why your community is looking to address each identified area. Next slide. CDAP offers technical assistance in 3 ways: ARC assistance, partner assistance, and grant assistance. In an effort to expand the assistance provided by our partners, some changes have been made to our application process, including the option to apply directly for assistance from Georgia State University and ULI Atlanta. I'll cover this in a little more detail in just a moment. Next slide. We partner with 4 fantastic organizations: Georgia Conservancy through their Sustainable Growth Program, Georgia State University through their graduate capstone projects, Georgia Tech through their graduate studio projects, and ULI Atlanta through their technical assistance panels. Information about our partners can be found on pages 17 through 21 and page 29 of the CDAP guidebook, and I encourage you to go there and learn more. Next slide. I know you've seen this timeline. As Jared said, it's very similar to the LCI timeline, save for that last date there. Our application window opened January 14th. It closes February 18th. After internal review, we will announce those projects in April or May at a CRC meeting. Our projects will begin in August. We'll work through 2022 into 2023 and wrap up in May. Next slide. So what does your application need? First and foremost, it needs a good idea that aligns with 1 or more of CDAP's priority issue areas. Of course, it needs completed answers to your application questions, including how the project advances social equity or community resiliency and engages with a CBO. Remember, applicants need to be a representative from a local government, CID, or a nonprofit. And finally, we have to have those signed letters of support from elected officials and relevant parties. This sometimes becomes a timing issue for some of our communities, so we always like to broadcast this early and often. Next slide. Applications are evaluated first and foremost on the overall quality of the proposed project. However, we also look at how the project addresses social equity or community resiliency and how it engages the CBO. We look at how well the project includes a community engagement, as well as how well the project addresses 1 or more of the 8 priority issue areas. We're looking at geographic diversity and support from local leadership and relevant parties. And then, of course, we have to look at the availability of ARC and partner resources. Next slide. To apply, go to atlantaregional.org/call-for-projects. There you'll not only find our online applications, but you'll see our program guidebooks and printable applications. Now, those are important because once you begin your application, you can't save it. So it's important that you are prepared to start and finish your application once you begin. Next slide. And I promised to talk a little bit about the application updates. If you are interested in Georgia State University or ULI Atlanta assistance, when you get to step 2 of 2, you'll select Technical Assistance Partner and then select Georgia State University or ULI Atlanta. Once you hit submit, that will take you to their specific application. It'll still be on our webpage, but it won't be the general CDAP application that you'll be taken to for any of the other selections. And again, all of the other assistance types will be taken to the general CDAP application. This is meant to sort of cut down on that two-step application process that some of you may have had to complete in the past. Next slide. I'll open it up for any questions that you might have at the moment. If you don't have any, please feel free to reach out to me. As Jared said, I'm happy to meet with you. My email is mbogle@atlantaregional.org, and I'm happy to sit down and talk through your project ideas. It looks like we've got Darryl Johnson has a question, so let me unmute you right quick, Darryl. All right, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Hey, Molly, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Darryl Johnson, the new Executive Director of 044 Business Association.
Wonderful.
And, take the opportunity. I know we've been working on in 2020, you had a CDAP plan with us, so I look forward to working with you all again. Just wanted to make an introduction, and I'll be reaching out to you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Great.
All right, and with that, we are going to jump to our panel discussion.
All right, well, thank you everyone, and thank you, Molly, for going over the application. I do want to just also mention some of the technical aspects about the CDAP application that Molly mentioned also apply to the LCI application as well. So we strongly encourage you to write your application out in the Word document and then cut and paste your answers into the online submission. You will get a confirmation page if it's successfully submitted as well. And once you do submit, we will also send out a general yes, we received your application email to everyone as well. So we wanted to take the time to bring three different LCI and CDAP project types together to have them discuss what the application process was, how that application and project has impacted their community. And we have three great speakers today. We have Joe Allen from the Gwinnett Place CID. We have Eileen De La Tour from City of Decatur and Caroline Whaley from the Gateway Marietta CID. They're here really to, as people that are in your shoes, to give you some tips, how that's impacted their community, and how it's, what their projects are and how they got there. And first, I'm going to allow Caroline to introduce herself and her project as well. So,
great, thank you very much. As Jared said, my name is Caroline Whaley, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Gateway Marietta CID. And for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with where we're situated, we are a 73 parcel CID situated about it's about 1.2 square miles that we take up along Franklin Gateway in the city of Marietta. We are sandwiched right in between South Marietta Parkway and Delk Road, and we do have a little bit of extension on either side to the north and south. And so we can go to the next slide. I will say that when I was at this meeting 2 years ago in person, sitting next to actually Alicia Smith. They're asking her a lot of questions and listening very intently, trying to figure out what this whole program was and would we have anything that could potentially be a part of it. I was really at this meeting more as a fact-finding mission, wanting to know what was going on. And I will say it was very beneficial because after I left the meeting, hearing panelists discuss and of course talking Alicia's ear off, I got some great ideas of what maybe we could be doing. And so some of the things that we looked at with our study, the title of our study is Creative Placemaking, Wayfinding, and Signage. So we were looking at signage opportunities within the CID right here on these photos. This is the entrances into the CID coming from Delk Road and South Marietta Parkway right into Franklin Gateway. And as you can see, we have no signage at all. And so we wanted to look at opportunities of could we do signage? And then the next slide. we also wanted to look at an underpass that we have within our CID. We affectionately call this the Blanche Drive underpass. At the top left, you can see an aerial view. We have not only I-75 crossing over, but we also have the express lanes. And so we have two essentially underpasses back to back that create this tunnel of darkness, as you can see. The unique part about this underpass and why it was somewhat interesting for us to take on in this project is it is at the most northern boundary of our CID. It actually is situated more in a residential area, but with two commercial areas on either side of the bridge. And so we wanted to see ways that we could lighten this up, make it more pedestrian friendly, honestly, make it more friendly just in general, and encourage movement through the area, maybe brighten up at a source of excitement to the residential area as well as the commercial area. So we worked through, Croy Engineering was our lead team that we worked with through this project. We partnered very closely with the City of Marietta through their support, as well as kind of them giving us advice, as well as direction in terms of what could be beneficial in the area. Because this bridge in particular is situated more in a residential area, as all of these projects are, very much involve the community, the stakeholders, and getting the input, not only of the CID board, but everybody that was involved. And this bridge, because it falls in a residential area, I will be honest, proved to be a little interesting to navigate through opinions and what individuals wanted, and honestly, some of the fears that some of the residents felt making enhancements to this bridge. It might increase development, encourage too much traffic. So there were several, I'll say, speed bumps throughout the project that we kind of curveballs that came at us, but I think in the end helped enlighten us and create a great plan. We can go to the next slide. Some of the things that came out of the study, and I think which was great, it helped us as a CID know a direction to head in. We had signage recommendations, not only monument signs and secondary signages, but other types of community signage, from banner signs all the way down to small, what I'd call yard signs. You know, this project brought to you by. As a CID, most of you know we're always doing projects, and our commercial property owners, we want to make sure that everybody knows what we're up to and the improvements that are being done in the area. Because we fall within the city limits of Marietta, we also wanted to make sure that our signs coordinated with the current monument signage that the city of Marietta has throughout their city limits. So we wanted them to stand on their own, but at the same time coordinate and complement, so there felt like there was a theme going on. So again, this was a great opportunity to work very closely with the city of Marietta in our efforts to create signage recommendations. You can go to the next slide. In the study, things that came out of it, we had some great, and I'm just showing you these things because again, this is what was so helpful to me when I was working on our application. We had renderings come out of it, taking what was the bridge that I showed you before and showing what could be some great, I will say extreme makeovers, but opportunities that we could happen as the Blanche Drive underpass. And then we'll go through the next two quickly. And then looking at signage opportunities at South Marietta Parkway and Franklin Gateway. So again, taking that bare corner that I showed you at the beginning and kind of dressing it up and making it an inviting feel to the area. The signage is not only signage, but an element that was brought into that is also opportunities for creative placemaking. So it's not fully zoomed in, but there's opportunities for benches and other things that will encourage the pedestrians in the area to continue moving through in other forms of mobility. And then the next slide. And then again at Delk Road, again, trying to create that inviting feel as you come into the district. And then finally, some of the great things that came out of the study on the next slide are other smaller opportunities that we could look at, such as murals. Again, they gave us ideas of what benches and trash receptacles should look like. But one of the unique things that we hope to be moving forward with are utility box wraps. And some of you may have those within your community. In the city of Marietta, we do not. And so this is something, again, a great opportunity for partnership of looking for how the CID can take an idea and work closely with the city to create ideas. And again, almost put a mark on our area, you know, a statement of this is the Gateway Marietta CID. So in a nutshell, very quickly, that was our project. It's been a wonderful process of working through this.
Thanks, Caroline. And I also want to note that Caroline's project was what was called a CDAP grant. Originally, Caroline applied for just ARC staff assistance, but we realized her scope and what to best fit the community actually was a grant, to do a grant process. And that was one of the things we identified during the review. And we worked with them to convert it to a grant, and she was able to get that support from her board. Next, I'm going to just call on Joe Allen, because his slides are up real quick, to talk about the Gwinnett Place Mall site revitalization strategy. And this is something that is an LCI study that we funded last year. We're really excited about it. We just got underway, but we've already got some great feedback. And this one is probably a unique study from ARC, because this is the first LCI study that we actually identified doing translation and engaging underrepresented communities as part of the actual RFP with the consultants. So they were aware that translation and that engagement is important. So Joe, take it away.
Well, good morning to everyone, and thanks for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I'm going to, as Jared said, give you a brief introduction to our current LCI study. And I believe this is the most important study that has ever been done for this area. And though we've done many LCI studies that have resulted in very many positive initiatives for the Gwinnett Place area, this is really going to shape and determine the future for Gwinnett Central Business District for years to come. And so if y'all can go to the next slide, just to let everyone know where this is located. Most of you probably know where Gwinnett Place is, but we're located in the strategic heart of Gwinnett County off of Interstate 85 at Pleasant Hill Road. The mall was very successful when it opened in 1984. As a teenager of the 1980s, this is where you'd find all of us Friday and Saturday night hanging out. But over time, like many malls, it began to decline. And that began about 2001 with the opening of the Mall of Georgia, and then also the opening of what was then Discover Mills. The mall closed last year, but there are still 3 anchors located there. And hopefully you already know that the county purchased this mall, and that closed in April of last year. Next slide. And with that purchase, that gives us a great opportunity to do some really amazing things and also build off of previous planning efforts. Many of them, again, were funded by LCI studies. But we do have a community-supported vision, a technical analysis that's based on national best practices, and this action plan will create a path forward for a vibrant, walkable, transit-oriented, mixed-use community and destination that importantly celebrates the international character and the diverse background of those that call this area home. Next slide, please. And this has truly been a partnership between the CID, Gwinnett County government, and the Atlanta Regional Commission. The CID and the county have been joined at the hip from the day one of this, from creating the application to putting together the RFP, to serving on the review process for the various proposals we received, and then also now serving on the review team. And this group, this effort is being led by VHB. They've again assembled an amazing team of national experts, and our effort is being led by project manager Allison Stewart Harris. Next slide, please. We kind of hit the ground running in September, and this process will continue through August. The last several months in the fall of last year, we have estimated we have engaged with over 1,000 diverse members of our community. And we've done that through various pop-up events, going to the people, not having them come to us, but us going to them. We've done a lot of stakeholder one-on-one interviews with the top leadership, down to the Chamber of Commerce, Partnership Gwinnett, and others. And then we've hosted 35 focus groups. And as Jared said, given the diversity of this area, many of those were translated into various languages, Korean, Chinese, and others. We've had all of our materials that we've used in this outreach also translated. And we've really reached out to the leadership of these communities, going to their events and other things to make certain that their voice is heard. And I think that's something the CID has tried to do over the years, but we have really made that a very intentional part of this effort. And with that, I'm going to be quiet, but I do want to say that you can visit our website, which is gwinnettplacetobe.com. We've got some really cool interactive online tools that you can help shape the future. That's also translated into various languages. And hopefully we can come back in August when this is finished and give you an update on where things will be heading for Gwinnett Place's Dead Mall. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. And our last speaker is Eileen De La Tour from the city of Decatur. And she's worked on a really interesting CDAP ARC staff assistant project with Molly. And I'm going to let her just introduce it real quick. And then we'll have some other questions for the panelists as well.
Hi, I'm Eileen De La Tour, and excuse me, our project was a much smaller scale than the two previous ones. It was basically developing a rehabilitation program for older properties and people of low income. So the way it started was in the end of 2018, the city of Decatur had put together an affordable housing task force to look at housing solutions in our small city. You know, we suffer from a crisis of affordable housing, as much of the rest of the country does as well. And so we were looking for different strategies on how to bring in more affordable housing, how to maintain the existing affordable housing that we have. And there were many different things that we were looking at. One of them, or one of the suggestions that came out of this affordable housing task force, was something called MLK Every Day. And what that meant was anything, really. You know, we do have the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend service project, but you know, the idea was maybe to expand that throughout the year, because you know, emergencies don't just happen on one weekend. And it was part of a strategy to keep lower income and older residents in their homes, basically. So with that germ of an idea, I looked at different ways in which we could, you know, basically take this and actually do something with it. Now, my background is historic preservation, so I was familiar with a lot of rehab grant programs for historic preservation. And so I was kind of looking at integrating the two together. And then the opportunity to apply for a CDAP grant came up for technical assistance. And it was a perfect opportunity to kind of take, again, this germ of an idea and make it into something real. I mean, what does it mean? The technical assistance that we received was invaluable. And we ended up with this gorgeous tome here. And what it did was to help us actually develop the MLK Everyday idea into an actual rehabilitation program. And the way that ARC assisted was to look at other programs in the region and elsewhere. One of them was Marietta's rehabilitation program. And you know, how that worked, you know, either through grants or through forgivable loans to residents in order to assist with, you know, some small scale or even larger scale projects that they needed, like in HVAC systems or what have you. They helped us develop sort of they helped us to come up with ideas on who needs to be, you know, who should be involved in the program, who should be assisted, you know, how it's going to look. And the fantastic thing about it is that we're really taking this project and we're just running with it. We're basically in the second phase now, where we're taking this rehabilitation, this idea for a rehabilitation program, and we're housing it under the Decatur Legacy project. And we're looking at ways to actually, you know, find funding. Right now, who has become Kristen Allen, who has become my right-hand man in this and is really kind of taken over this project. Very fantastic. She has found some sources of funding, including the ARPA funds, in order to kind of get the seed, funding seed. We're currently looking at whether it's going to be grants, it's going to be loans, and how we can maintain this long-term affordability. It's really something that has, you know, it's something that was necessary for our city, and it's something that, you know, everybody has been, you know, really involved with, and, you know, very interested in making happen. So, and without the CDAP assistance, I don't think it could have gotten this far, to be honest, you know, due to time factors and the fact that, you know, ARC just has the data and the ability to get the data that we in the city don't necessarily have the time or expertise to do. So it's been a really great opportunity for us to really get something going. And I'll definitely get into a little more detail on certain aspects of it once we start doing the panel discussion.
Thanks, Aileen. My first question is really to Joe and Caroline, as two different studies. You know, part of it is working and getting buy-in from your host local government and partner agencies. So how did you go about approaching your local governments or other partners to kind of get buy-in for the CID to do this project?
Well, I guess I'll start. We've been focused on this mall, as Jared and others may know, for many years. And so we have been engaged with our political leadership from the previous administration to the new administration. We actually really tried to make this a topic of conversation during the 2020 elections. But the county has been focused on this for a number of years with us, have worked with us. And so it's just been a constant drumbeat. And the good thing about the LCI for us was early on in this process, when we said we've got to do something with that mall, when we did some of those initial visioning LCIs and concept development, it gave us the data we needed. It gave us some potential projects to begin working on around the mall site that could feed into the ultimate redevelopment when the time was right. It was all about timing with the previous two owners of the property that the county purchased. And so the LCI really helped us keep a focus on that and kept us moving forward. And that allowed us to continue to have regular conversations through our planning session with the county that we do once a year, and to the regular meetings I have with the county administrator. So it allowed us to have the data, to have the information, to have the vision to keep this thing front and center with the county staff and leaders.
Caroline?
Yeah, and I think I can, echo some of Joe's comments in the sense of continuing and keeping a close relationship and a dialogue going. I'll say in our example, while it hadn't been an ongoing conversation that had been happening, we still had the relationship. We worked very closely with the city government. I will say that Councilman Goldstein and Councilwoman Richardson, whose wards are a part of our CID, are very involved in board meetings and in conversations and discussions. But because this idea was, sitting in a meeting, thinking about it, drive back, from the downtown area up to Cobb County, that's kind of when the idea started to percolate. It was a faster moving one, but because we had been working closely and having that partnership all along from the creation of the CID in 2014, I think that's what made it possible for the board to reach out to Councilman Goldstein and ask for his support, for us to reach out to the mayor and then the city council for their support and buy-in into this project. There had been encouragement for signage to be happening, but the bigger project was the bridge itself. And would this be something they would be willing for us to just entertain and learn a little bit more about?
And Caroline, there was a question in the chat was, how much did you all work with GDOT on the underpass? I know there was some conversations throughout the process, but if you maybe want to just chime in on that real quick.
Sure. So, GDOT was a part of our stakeholder committee, but I will be honest, there wasn't as much involvement. It's now happening after the fact. Now that we have some concepts and some ideas to be going after, the next step is really a feasibility of, some of the plans with that bridge are changing embankments and trying to make the sidewalks larger. So now we need to look at how feasible is this? Now, that was definitely always considered along the way, but now the deeper conversations are happening once the study is over.
Thanks, Caroline. And Eileen, when you filled out your application now, I think almost a year or 2 years ago, was there any tips that you could give people about, putting together an effective application?
Yes, I would say to keep an open mind about what you would like to do. So when I first applied, again, with historic preservation being my background, I was actually more focused on historic preservation as the primary goal of of this project, with housing affordability being secondary. And after conversations with Molly and with other people that were helping to kind of fill out this application, we reversed that to have the housing affordability aspect be the more important, and then the preservation aspect of it be secondary. So so sometimes decisions by committee don't work, but sometimes they do make for a better application, a better project.
And Joe, similar, you're actually, I think last year, the first person to turn in an application. We do actually monitor that, people. We do get a list. But how were you able to kind of put together that application for a very complex site and with a lot of different moving parts and people so quickly?
Well, you may recall we had the beginning of this application the year before that we submitted the CID by itself. And that was also prior to the county owning or beginning the process to own the mall. And so we had the foundation, and then quickly, because we've had these ongoing conversations with key people at Gwinnett County, I was able to quickly, we all came together, worked on it, and then I got that to you as soon as possible. Because again, this is so important. The redevelopment of this mall is key to the future transformation of this auto-centric area.
And Joe, that area is very diverse. So how did you work with getting people, the nonprofits and the other business owners that may not be a part of the CID involved in the application process?
Well, over the years, we've tried to cultivate those relationships with various organizations in the area. We visit with the various businesses in the area. We already have a lot of our materials in various languages. So we already had many of those connections there. So we just built upon that and really reached out more and more to the leadership and to the other stakeholders. And then also VHB with their connections. They brought, again, a very robust set of contacts. We didn't really have so much say in the arts area, but they brought that. They also had some great contacts in the affordable housing conversation when we did a focus group with individuals and developers that are geared toward that area. And so really it was just, it's all about relationships. And so we've tried to do that over the years and have utilized those. And now we really pulled all that together and are continuing to build that through this process. This process has really opened the doors to even more folks to get their input, because we want everyone to be heard as part of this. And then we're going to bring it into a strategy that reflects the desires and the wishes of our very diverse community, but is also based on economic principles and market analysis.
Thanks, Joe. Caroline, you hinted at this during your application or your overview. CIDs are very much business owner focused, but that main project, that underpass, had a lot of concerns from the residential neighborhood surrounding it. Can you talk about how that conversation kind of evolved through the process, and did you get buy-in from them at the end?
Sure. So, whenever you're having, through projects like this, you have public engagement meetings where you're inviting in the public, and, similar to how we see today with it being Zoom, we held ours all via Zoom. And so in pushing the information out to make sure that we had participants, we reached out to the Cloverdale Heights neighborhood, which is the neighborhood where the underpass is situated. And we had 2 individuals from that neighborhood that actually served on the stakeholder committee as well. So they were very helpful in getting the word out about the meeting. I will say at the second public engagement meeting that we held, it was, I would say, primarily, if not 100%, I'll go with 95% was residents, and the remainder was maybe the consulting team. I believe, Jared, you were on the call, and myself. So that was very much a community-focused meeting, because it turns out there was a lot of concern about what might be happening. It stemmed from the fact that previously there had been a large parcel of undeveloped land back in that area that had come up for rezoning that had been denied by city council. But there was still, the residents had been concerned about that. And then when they hear the bridge is happening, they're wanting to know what's going on. And so I think that through the meeting, we were able to explain and show the reasons behind what we were wanting to do. And as you saw the renderings, some great opportunities of what might happen. I think what really helped was the follow-up conversations afterwards. And that was something I'm used to working with my commercial owners and working with the stakeholders in that aspect. And so diving in and really trying to have a listening ear, hearing what their concerns were, taking it back to the consulting team to try and get answers for them. In the end, did we win everybody over? Well, I don't think that ever happens. And I can say that because I have teenage boys. So I know that, not everybody's always happy, but I think we've come to some agreements where of better understanding. I understand their concerns, and the residents understand what's trying to be achieved, and a form of trust and partnership. So again, you have to have your partnerships with your commercial owners, with your city government in our instance. And in this instance, we needed a partnership and a trust being developed with our residents in the area that will be impacted. So we're still working on it.
Thanks, Caroline. Eileen, you talked a little bit about implementation of this process. How was buy-in from the city council indicator, but also some of maybe the residents that could be impacted by this plan and project going forward?
Well, I can say that we had a very large amount of buy-in for this project. As I mentioned, it grew out of an already existing task report that we had been working on for a couple of years, that the city commission had recently approved, the Affordable Housing Task Force, because we'd been talking about housing affordability for a while, but it has basically reached the crisis point. And so it was very much, we have this report, what are we going to do with it? So when this opportunity came up to actually take one of the recommendations and run with it, everybody was absolutely keen on this. Everybody in the city and many of the constituents, residents in the city. We actually already have several people who've contacted us about assistance with rehabilitation, even though we haven't actually launched the program yet. We do have it out there on our website, information that this is kind of something that we're looking at, something that we're trying to develop. And so it's been a very exciting opportunity to make something real. It's not just a study anymore. It's something that will be happening and that hopefully will have impact on some of our more vulnerable residents here in the city. And so because of that, it's been a very, very positive experience with everybody who's talked to me about it. So yeah.
All right, thanks. We only have a couple more minutes left, but I'm really curious if anyone in the audience has any questions for our panelists or ARC. You could either raise your hand or throw the question in the chat right now. Anyone? Sam, I'm sure you have a question. Okay, Sam.
I'm gonna save the time, and otherwise I could just keep going with questions. But I do want to say appreciate all the different perspectives that you all provided. It's been very helpful.
Yes, and thank you for our panelists and giving some time this morning to help other communities get ideas and thoughts throughout this process. And I think, Molly, we're going to go into breakout rooms, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So we've got 10 minutes left. We're going to go into some breakout rooms, and this is just another opportunity for you to talk through some project ideas. There's going to be a staff member from community development in each of these rooms, and also to ask any technical questions about the application process. So when you're finished, feel free to leave. We're not going to come back into the main room after we're done. So there's no reason to stay on for the full 10 minutes. If your group is done, and you have had all of your questions asked, feel free to go on and go about your morning. So we are going to go ahead and open our breakout rooms. And thank you again, everyone, for your time and your attention. And we look forward to seeing you next month.
And feel free to reach out to Molly and myself if you have any questions over the next couple of weeks. I will say, do not wait till Friday, February, I think 25th or something. It would be the date. Try to ask your questions sooner than later. So hopefully I'll see a few of you in the breakout rooms.
All right. See ya. Bye.